my perspective was so much that everything I was doing was meaningless.
Yeah.
That I was just trapped in this constant cycle of feeding and cleaning and feeding and cleaning.
Sounds like, you were wrapped up in sort of this cycle of meaningless motherhood.
Oh, so much meaningless motherhood.
Okay.
And all of the shoulds of everybody around me, you should be so happy. You've got a perfect family, a girl and a boy.
Yeah.
You should. And I was like, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Help me.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Meta Transitions. We're here today with Heather Benna, and Heather is a friend, a mother, and a wife. I also would like to introduce her as a colleague as well. She is a registered professional counselor, and today she will be sharing with us her life transition story and how it led her to her current profession. So Heather.
Hi, Tricia.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So what is your life transition story? Tell me, how did that begin?
It began long before I became a counselor, actually. When I was in my early 30s with really young children, I found myself in desperately isolated and lonely feelings, overwhelmed by the tasks at hand, and just feeling incredibly incapable. And I isolated myself, and I needed to learn the skill actually of asking for help. That was the biggest thing, that I needed somebody to say, yes, I can help you. But I didn't ask for help, and I acted like I was okay. Yeah. But inside I was suffering.
I could totally relate to that sense of not wanting to ask for help. I think that was something that, held me back as well, when I was younger too, in the sense that, I felt like if I asked for help, it was some sort of weakness or something like that.
Yes.
So I totally hear that.
And sometimes in my case, it took a really sort of tuned in friend to show up. She actually showed up every day for about a week in the morning with a Starbucks, different flavor every day, like forcing me to try something new or something. And on about the fifth day, I cried. And she came in and we sat together, and she said, you need to see a doctor. You need to tell somebody that you're having a hard time. And so I did. I went to see a doctor. And he referred me to a counselor, and the counselor recommended that I do a workbook. And that's a hard thing to do when you're depressed, is get up and do, worksheets and workbooks. And it sat for quite some time on my desk, but I would glance at it and think, there's answers in there. I'm sure there's answers in there. Yeah. And when one day I was home alone with the kids, and I was so overwhelmed by a sense of anger and rage. It was irrational, and there was nothing that seemingly had happened to throw me into the very depth of that. But I knew the kids weren't safe. And so I went into my room, and I put them out of my room, and I called my husband, and I said, I'm asking for help, because I want to kill the kids. And he said, don't hang up. Talk to me until I'm there. I'm coming right now. And he came home. And thankfully, I was able, because I had been able to ask that friend for help. Then when it got worse, I was able to ask my husband for help. And then I was able to ask the doctor for help. And I got the help I needed. And I'm thankful that we had resources. We had the opportunity to hire somebody to come in and cook and clean and things like that, because my perspective was so much that everything I was doing was meaningless. That I was just trapped in this constant cycle of feeding and cleaning and feeding and cleaning. And whenever there was a moment to play, I was too tired emotionally. Yeah.
It sounds like, you were wrapped up in sort of this cycle of meaningless motherhood.
Oh, so much meaningless motherhood.
Okay.
And all of the
Okay.
shoulds of everybody around me, you know, you should be so happy. You've got a perfect family, a girl and a boy.
Yeah.
You should be so happy. They're such lovely children. You should. And I was like, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Help me. Yeah.
Nah, I can't say that I understand. I'm myself not a mother, but I'm listening to you and I can, you know, hear sort of that societal expectation that was probably placed on you, you know, feeling like, oh, I have to fulfill, you know, what society's telling me. This is how a mother should be.
Exactly.
You know, and if I'm not this, then, you know, what am I?
Yeah.
You know, so that question of who am I? What am I? Except this mother role that society gave me.
Exactly. And to that point, there was this, all my life, I knew I wanted to help people.
Yeah.
So when I was college age, you know, I took psychology and I did the stuff. And then I married and I had my kids and suddenly, how was I going to help people? And so I had lost sight of the fact that I can help people in the moment that I'm in, when I was overwhelmed by my daily tasks as a mother. And I hadn't been able to connect the meaning of helping and being of service to the tasks that I was doing at that time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now you're sort of moving into that piece of transitioning from, you know, the state of, you know, expectation, motherhood, what society wanted you to do, to sort of trying to figure out what was the meaning, what could you do to help society, and sort of how did that unfold?
So how that unfolded was magically. The counselor one day said to me, "You have a Christian background." I said, "Yes, I do." And he said, "Do you know the piece about working for the Lord and not for man?" And I said, "Yes." But I never applied that to anything other than work, proper paid work, which has value because you're getting paid. Motherhood, you don't get paid. And so I was devaluing it myself. And so when I adopted that piece of scripture as a bit of a mantra, suddenly everything that I was doing had meaning. So I wasn't preparing dinner. I was nourishing the next generation. I mean, I might have been a little exaggerated in it because I was thinking, I'm nourishing the next generation.
Of course.
But it made it fun. It made it playful and it made it meaningful so that it wasn't mundane anymore. It was the task at hand. And my job was to do it to the best of my ability in the moment.
Yeah. It became so much bigger.
So much
than
bigger.
you and what you could see as, you know, just these boring tasks. But it moved to sort of, you know, something that you could do for your children, for the next generation, you know, the future of society.
And it filtered into every aspect of my life. My friendships changed. Some people thought I had kind of gone off the rails and disappeared. But anytime a person's going through a gigantic life shift like that, I think people do. Some come closer and some fall away. And there's some grief that goes with that for sure. But it also is to be expected. So how about you? What do you find is the thing that is most meaningful about coming into the helping profession and being a counselor?
I think what's been most meaningful for me is similarly to you. I've, you know, wanted to help people, but I started my helping sort of profession in a different mindset. I wanted to become a medical doctor. Now, yes. So this story dates back to sort of like when I was in Jamaica and I grew up, and sort of like, you know, as a child, you get bumps and bruises and cuts and stuff. And when those things would happen, I'd be so curious about, you know, how the tissues form back and all, you know, those gross things that people are like, oh, I hate blood. I was like, oh, that's fascinating.
Right.
Sort of thing. So it's sort of, you know, I had sort of this curiosity for it. And then I said, okay, yeah, sure, let's do this, you know. I did all the subjects, all the things I needed to do to prepare myself for that, to go to university to do that in Jamaica before I came here as an immigrant. Actually got into Northern Caribbean University to do a BSc in biology. I was only there for 2 weeks, but because we had to immigrate to Canada. So I didn't get a chance to fulfill that purpose. But when I got here, I was like, okay, I can still do it, and when I applied to universities here, it was so competitive. I was unable to get into a biology program.
Wow.
And the university that I was at the time, that I was applying to, there were a few that responded and got mostly rejections. And then this one responded and gave me alternatives based on sort of, I guess, other subjects.
So based on the things that you had studied, they were saying, looks like you'd also be lined up maybe for one of these degrees.
Exactly. So, my parents were like, okay, you can just get your foot in the door, and then you could sort of transition or shift into, biology if that's what you want to do later. So I was like, okay, I'm still pumped and motivated. Let's do this.
That didn't discourage you?
No, because I was on a path. See, my discouragement comes. Don't worry.
Okay.
So I got there, and I applied. I decided to accept psychology. So I got into the psychology program, and you have to do introduction to psychology and sort of all the other electives that you have to do in your first year.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like excited because it was only one psychology course that I had to do in first year. So I was like, okay, great. I don't have to waste too much time. That's sort of how I was looking at it. And then after the first semester, I was like, yeah, I think I can sort of put my feelers out surrounding, how I can transition into the science program. So I started to add science courses for my second semester.
As electives?
Oh, yeah. Yes, you have to find a way in,
Yeah.
So I did that. And then, I started doing the courses and got really excited and everything. I thought I was doing all right. Then the, midterm comes up and I do the midterm. I'm like, yes, let's do this. Results come and I'm flabbergasted because I'm literally getting lower than 50%.
No.
On my exams. And I'm like, how is this possible? Like, why is this happening? And I'm like, okay, I'm still not deterred. I'm going to, complete the courses. I'm like, okay, what helps me to study well? I study well in groups. Let's get some group people. Got some group people. We studied together. Let's do well on the final. Final comes around, same results. At this point, I'm like, what's going on here? Like, why is this happening to me? I'm really good at these subjects. Like, why is this happening? I even went to the professor, talked to them. I was like, why can't I, do well? What are some things that I'm not doing well? And I got even more discouragement because they indicated that, oh, not everybody is good at these subjects. Maybe you should try something else.
But your experience prior to that had been that you were good at those subjects.
Definitely. So then, I was sort of in this space where I was like, do I continue to fight for this? Continue to fight the school, continue to fight the professors, myself, because I'm also disappointed with myself because I did the tests, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, am I not cut out for this anymore, sort of thing? And, I was sort of in this midlife crisis sort of situation. And I'm like beside myself, questioning myself. There's self-doubt, all of that happening, and negative self-talk. You won't even imagine.
Yes,
all
I
the
can.
Negative things.
Am I not good enough? Can I not measure up? What's wrong with me? All these ridiculous core beliefs that.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And then, I said to myself, I'm here in school. I can't afford to, not do what I need to do. So I decided that I was going to go to the academic advisor, I think. And they looked again at my transcripts. What were the subjects you're doing really well in? And again, psychology comes up. And psychology, I'm doing extremely well because to me, it's not challenging. It's just I'm really good at that.
Did it just make sense to you?
And
so it was easy?
And I guess so.
Yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah.
And then the advisor said, why not give this subject a try? You got into the university with this subject. You're doing well with this subject. Do some more of these courses. And then I started to look at the course lists and I started adding some of the courses that I thought I'd be interested in, like health psychology and child psychology and, abnormal psychology. I was like, okay, let's find out more about this. And once I got into those courses and I got more information, I started loving it. I was just like, wow, yes, I want to treat the human body, but I get to treat the human mind. I got really fascinated and even more curious about the mind, and even learning about Freud and all these other theorists. I got really fascinated by it, and since then I haven't turned back. I was just like, tell me more about this. And becoming a doctor became a distant sort of memory. I still remember it as something I wanted to do, but now I think of it like I was able to sort of reframe sort of the story in a sense. Yes, I was disappointed that I wasn't able to get into that particular profession, but in a sense, I feel like I'm still doing what I wanted to do. In the sense, I'm helping others to be able to gain a better understanding of who they are.
Well, and heal their inner wounds, right? Exactly. So I'm hearing this story of this young girl who was so interested in hurts she could see. And now you're helping to heal hurts that maybe sometimes people can't see, right? They're on the inside. Because so often we're walking around like everything's okay, and we're in agony inside. Yeah. It's it's interesting to hear you talk about, like, you had this dream of being a medical doctor.
Yes.
And what the transition has happened, and you've adapted and shifted, altered your framing so that it makes sense for you now. And I think about my kids, and there's a parallel there for me in that I knew when I was 7 years old, I knew I wanted to be a wife and a mom. And that's not an occupation. It's not, lucrative financially, but it was a dream I always had. And when I got my dream, I got destroyed. And I had to reframe, reshift, adjust, adapt, and alter my expectations of what was. And be really in full acceptance of what was. To come through it.
How powerful reframing can be.
How powerful.
Right?
Yes.
Oh man. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I guess I have a question here. Question number 3. What are some of the things that you think contributed to your shift? Your shift from that motherhood to the passion that you're having now, and sort of think of tips that you could share with others that may be going through, that same struggle.
Kind of transition. I think we face so many transitions in our lives, really almost in every decade, there's a transition. And I think the transition from sort of what is currently to fulfilling a dream or a shift or a new career path was really well supported by the skill that I learned when I was in crisis of being able to ask for help. I was able to say to my friends and family, hey, I had this dream to help people from a psychology perspective when I was young, and it didn't get realized because I was living the dream of having a family. Now my kids are at an age and stage where my time is coming back more under my purview, and I'm freer to make different choices, but I need help. I'm not going to be able to maintain these services and go and fulfill those ambitions. So I need help. And everybody who had stayed by me during the darkest time was with me in the light and stepped up and helped. Stepped up and helped. Asking for help has got to be one of the biggest things, that social capacity to orient ourselves socially and ask for what we need, speak to our needs. If we can figure out what they are in the first place, which is where we come in.
Yes, definitely.
But so that, and then being able to learn the skills of grounding and emotional regulation so that I can live my life from a really clear cognitive place.
Okay, tell me more about the grounding.
The grounding? What skills?
Yeah, like something you could share with.
Yeah, my absolute favorites. Here's my absolute favorite.
Yes.
I just am sitting here right now doing Kegels and flexing my bum cheeks, my glutes. But not enough that anybody else can notice, but it's happening in this moment. And I'm letting my breath fall softly and deeply into the back of my belly.
That makes sense.
So my abdomen is soft and full. and my seat is firm and solid.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm really confident in this posture, and I can do it everywhere without anyone noticing. Another one I love is just to put my hands in my lap against each other, and to just bring my attention and awareness to me supporting me. Just that felt sense of skin on skin. I'm connected. I'm whole. And interestingly, it's also a circle right around my heart.
Oh, wow.
And so I visualize that, and I'm good. But combined with the breathing. Those are the things that I use.
Yes.
I know there's a lot of grounding and containment techniques for emotional regulation, but those really work for me. A young person in my life carries a rock in their pocket, and it fits just in the palm. And at any moment, at any given day, if they're getting buffeted by the world and feeling dysregulated, just reach in and put their hand on the rock, take a deep breath, and it's a touchstone, a literal touchstone to remember their connection.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. No, those are 3 great grounding tips that, hopefully our viewers out there will be able to help them. And don't worry, we will put some of these tips in the description below. And Heather, before we end, just wanting to ask you, how can the viewers contact you? If they wanted to consult with you, they wanted to get some, counseling support from you, how can they connect with you?
Thanks, Tricia. Yeah, I have a private practice downtown, and I work Mondays and Fridays with clients. And the easiest and most effective way to connect with me is by text message. And my phone number will be in the link at the bottom of Tricia's videos.
Great. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you for being with us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Perfect.